Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen, for who are listening to episode number 12 of the Life is Limitless podcast. My name is Cody Demery, and I am the host, and it's been a fantastic journey getting to this point and all the conversations that we've had so far with some amazing folks. And I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today with Ryan the Jaw, a gentleman that I met a few years ago who I actually had the privilege and the honor of also knowing both parents. But this gentleman has been through the ringer. This gentleman has came from the other side of a tragic incident and is one of the most kindest, gentle souls that I've got the privilege to meet over the past few years in my journeys in life. Ryan, so thankful to have you on the Life is Limitless podcast today, buddy. I know we've chatted about this for a while, and because the weather decided to come at us with another big storm of winter today,
Yeah.
I'm not on the road today, so we were able to make it happen, and I'm so thankful that we finally have the chance to have this conversation today, buddy.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on and stuff. We got a lot of cool stuff to talk about from my experience, and I'm sure other people um will understand, where I'm coming from and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
Yeah, so
yeah.
what's that?
Oh, I was just going to say, and you know what, man? I know it's been a few years since that incident, but, I know it definitely hit a lot of people in the hearts. It hit a lot of people's news feeds and everything that happened with that incident a while back. But, maybe Ryan, to start us off, can you give us a little background about yourself, buddy, where you're from, what your age is, and then we can kind of lead into that incident that, we'll chat about today.
Yeah, so uh yeah, to go back in time a bit, I used to live in English River First Nation, Pachinak, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that small town, right?
Yeah, most definitely, but I've been to Patchnak a few times in my professional speaking career for sure.
Yeah, I've always wanted to give speeches out there and plus here in town and stuff like that. But anyways, that's where I was from. So um, yeah, so I had a pretty much a normal childhood growing up in there, and uh, my mother actually got into at separate times. She got into three different vehicle accidents, so she had to go from my reserve in Pachinak all the way to Prince Albert, which is where I'm living right now. And we had to go back and forth there, plus Saskatoon for physiotherapy, rehab. She had to learn how to walk again and all that stuff. And it was all because other people were drinking and driving, and they pretty much rammed into her, and she almost lost her leg. Her leg kind of broke and stretched all the way in the back, and her foot was like right here. She Her lungs collapsed. She broke many bones and stuff like that. So it stuff was covered through SGI, thankfully. So driving all the way to Prince Albert and Saskatoon and stuff like that was covered for. And so it became too much of a hassle trying to go to school and then travel with her all the time. So I missed 3 years of school. I remember, I couldn't even read when I was a little kid because, I was always in the back of a vehicle and stuff. So, and, at some point I had to say goodbye to my friends and stuff that were there. And then I moved to the city and here in Prince Albert where I'm at. And then I just permanently stayed here. And then my mother, she got better. But then, back in the early 2000s and stuff, back when, Sackler family was giving oxys to everyone, like children with a mild headache, they would give that stuff to. You can see where the opioid crisis started from. It wasn't
Hmm.
street people that were, you know, selling this stuff. It actually started from the hospitals and stuff. So I was already aware at a young age of stuff like this, how, you go to a hospital and then they give you these medications and it's hard to get off of and stuff like that. So My mother was on, the morphine, hydromorphine, fentanyl, stuff like that. So it was starting to mess with her mind and her body over time because when you use it long term, it starts doing all kinds of stuff to your liver and stuff like that. So um, she was a really tough woman. She went cold turkey on all that stuff and she quit all of them like one by one
Hmm.
and stuff. So she got better, but even after she quit that stuff, it took years and years until her body actually started to like heal from that stuff because when you use it for a couple of years, that stuff is just deep in your system and your liver and stuff like that. And we're still learning today about the devastating effects that this stuff has on your system, but the hospital is kind of limited by what they can do because this is the only kind of medication that they have for pain and stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I stayed, here most of the time and then going back and forth to Saskatoon because RUH Hospital is a lot more bigger out there,
Yeah.
rehab facilities and stuff like that. She never went to rehab for drugs or anything like that. She did that stuff herself basically. And I was her biggest support in it. And because I wasn't going to school for 3 years, couldn't really read, but all I knew was just to take care of my mother and stuff. So finally, I started going to school. Then I was in grade three, and then I had to learn how to read from there, pick up from there, and going through the normal childhood traumas. Getting bullied, beaten by multiple people at once, beating up others and stuff. Because when you're in a toxic environment, that's just what you do. It's
Yeah.
just um, I don't see myself as a bad person for doing stuff like that because I am not the same person as I was 10 years ago. You can't judge someone on who they are 10 years ago. Your 20s or 30s or 40s or your 50s, you're a different version of yourself every time.
No.
Better or worse.
Amen, brother. Truly, I believe in that too, man. And I'm definitely not the same person I was 5, 10, 15 years ago myself. There's a parts of
Yeah.
me that are the same, but yeah, no, I definitely appreciate that. And, you said your mom's a strong woman, and I couldn't agree more for being able to do that, getting off those kind of, those morphine medications and opioids and stuff like that. Definitely takes a strong person to be able to do that without treatment, without other things. But she had some inspiration for sure, and that was her boy. So I'm glad you guys are both here and where you're at now. I would really love us to get to the conversation about what occurred a few years ago at Boston Pizza. I know that's how we initially connected a few years ago when you came up to me, I think at a trade show, and you started sharing your story with me, man. And I remember hearing about this news, and it struck me to my core that something happened like this. And I didn't even know you at this point. I didn't know who that I knew your dad back in the day too as well. So I didn't know we were connected from that way as well too. But for those who maybe don't remember or don't know about the information, what happened, a few years ago, please fill us in a little bit about that event.
Yeah, for sure. So, a couple years go by, I graduate high school and stuff. I'm surprised I made it through that,
Hmm.
given my knowledge and stuff. So, back in 2020, I was 21 years old, and uh, I was kind of embarrassed to say this, but I didn't know how to cook back then and stuff. So, I used to visit restaurants whenever, and I used to have the money for it back then to do that. So, that's how I get to know so many people in this town.
Hmm.
It's because I'm always, I was riding my motorcycle everywhere. I'm always meeting new people and stuff like that. So, anyways, so I was at my mother's place one night, and then I was kind of bugging her to make some chili. I said, I really like your chili there. Would you mind, making some? And she's like, oh, I'm a little tired today. You can just go wherever, get something to eat. I'm like, okay, I'll be right back. I said. So I take off, and little did we both know that that was the last time I was gonna come home. So I go to Boston Pizza, I order my food, I'm sitting down in the lobby area, and then now this is the part where it gets really graphic here. So just for the viewers and stuff like that, this is the very graphic part. So
Thanks for
anyway,
letting people know, Ryan.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm sitting there, and then I later learn through all my experiences and stuff like that, information I got from law enforcement and stuff, that there's this person named Trent who's in the gang North Battleford. He came here to Prince Albert looking to hurt anyone, to try to make a name for himself, to say, "Oh, I tried to kill someone." So, anyways, I'm sitting in the lobby, and then this guy, he sees me sitting there all alone. He comes running up to me full speed. He pulls out a 4-inch hunting knife. Then he stabs me right in the back of the head right here. And then my head instantly tilts to one side, and then I get up right away, and I can literally see that blade enter my head. It was it was the loudest bone cracking, meat grinding sound I've ever heard. I seen a shade of silver white go across my vision, just in and out. And I seen these like blue kind of electrical patterns or whatever in my vision and stuff. So he stabs me, and then he's just yelling at the top of his voice, like, "Why the f you snitch me out? F you! Why you do that?" And I took a step back, and I'm instantly stunned. I'm dizzy, and I'm just spraying blood out of my head, just in the back right here, just flowing like crazy. Then I took another step back. I'm trying to gain composure. What's going on? Like, what did he hit me with? What's going on? Things are just
Hmm.
happening really fast. So he grabs me by my vest, pulls me in, and then he stabs me right in the jaw right here. And I instantly go deaf on my left ear, and then I'm partially blind on my right eye. And I felt my jaw instantly crack, tilt to one side, and then tilt back. So when it stabbed, it went side and then back, and I felt every inch of that blade enter my head. I thought it went out the other side. Like, if you go on Google and type in Prince Albert Boston Pizza stabbing, and you hear me talk about my story on there, I said that it felt like the tip of the blade literally touched the other side of my head. Like, that's what it felt like. And
Wow.
so now I'm bleeding twice as much, and I took another step back, and both holes, they're about an inch, wide or whatever, and I'm just flowing blood like crazy, and my heart starts racing like crazy. And then I took a step back some more, and then so then he comes walking up to me, and I'm thinking at this point he's gonna finish me off and stab me with a third one. And little did I know that my friend Chad, who was the manager at Boston Pizza at the time, he seen me on the cameras get stabbed. So now he has to run up to the front and deal with the situation, not knowing what's going to happen next. Like, is there more
Oh,
people outside waiting? Is he
wow.
going to get stabbed? Like, is he going to finish me off and then go after him and stuff? Like, very high tense situation. And so he cuts in between us, and then he tells the guy to get out. He yells at him to get out. And so then he backs off, and then he starts walking away. And there's blood on his hand, just leaking down, and he's holding that knife and stuff. And then I'm thinking, oh no, I hope he doesn't stab him next.
Hmm.
The last thing I want to do is freak out and get all emotional and start crying. Because what happens when you freak out? You start hyperventilating and you start breathing more, and that's going to make more blood flow and stuff. So I thought, okay, I got to stay calm. So I used to have long hair up to my shoulders, so I couldn't find where the first blade was, but I knew where the second one was because it was right here, just leaking down like crazy. So I put my hand right here, and now I'm walking up to Trent, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna somehow, some way, I'm gonna have to fight this guy. And so I started walking up to him, and then Chad says, "Go sit down, you're hurt." He said, and then I'm thinking, I'm fine, I can fight this guy somehow. So he yells at me to sit down, and then I started to hear this sound of like water dripping, and I look down, and in between my legs, there's like a huge puddle of blood, and and I don't know how many bags I've lost so far. It's probably the fifth or sixth bag by now, because going through the whole thing, I've lost close to 10 bags of blood out of my head. So after the second stabbing and stuff, I'm still walking and I'm still talking, even though my jaw is dislocated and I'm getting more dizzy and stuff. And so I thought, I gotta go out there. I gotta fight him, I thought. So, uh, but I just can't. I can't. I'm so damaged right now. At any second, I can just drop dead. Science says that even after the first stabbing, any average person would just drop dead right there. If you ever watched a movie or played a video game, you know that the headshot always kills.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I go back to try to sit down, and then this girl comes out. She looks at me and she screams and cries and runs away.
Hmm.
I thought, oh, that's not good. I thought I probably look horrible right now. So a couple seconds go by, and then I'm looking down, and I'm trying to find the other hole. So I got my hand right here. I got my other hand in the back, and I'm trying to find where that other hole was. Then I started to feel my brain lobes. I thought, oh, that's the hole. Okay, I gotta put pressure right there. Then the girl comes back with a 2 to 3 inch stack of paper of these paper towels, and then she puts it on my cheek right here, and blood is going down her arm, and she's shaking, she's crying and stuff. And I'm telling her, I'm like, hey, I said, it's okay, I'm okay, like everything's gonna be okay. I'm trying to comfort her, knowing that at any second I can die. I wasn't thinking about my family at the time because I was more concerned about the people at Boston Pizza. I thought, if I'm not going to live tonight, I want to make sure these people make it home to their family. Uh, Even though I love my family so much, they mean the world to me, And I was, even though I wasn't ready to die at 21, like I'm at the peak of my age. 21 that is the peak of your life to be alive, I'd say, but and I just felt like it was so unfair. Everything was just taken from me overnight like that. So yeah, she continues to applying pressure and stuff. Trent Fox leaves, then apparently he was high on meth for like 5 days, and he was drinking on that day. So he was basically tweaking out, which means that he's hallucinating and he's not in his right mind. He goes to the back of the parking lot trying to steal one of the vehicles from the employees. He's using a knife to try to get in somehow. And so my friend Chad calls the cops, and it just so happens that right across the street at Burger King, there's a cop truck there. So they got the call, and they're the closest ones there. So they whip around the corner, and they caught him right away. And they're pointing guns at him. Freeze, put the knife down. So he surrenders. They put him in handcuffs, and then around 5 to 10 minutes goes by. It's kind of hard to tell, but around 5 to 10 minutes goes by. Then an ambulance truck shows up, and then there's like 6 or 7 cop trucks or cop vehicles surrounding the entire Boston Pizza. Nobody is there but me and the workers and stuff like that. So the ambulance workers come out, and then they got, given the information, they thought they were going to have to either carry a dead body out or something. So, so they come in, and then they're trying to help me walk, but I'm walking just fine. So I just walk out of the Boston Pizza, and then I go right to the ambulance vehicle. And then a cop comes up to me, and he says, "Do you know that person?" And I'm thinking in my head, "Oh, I don't want to talk to cops. I don't like these guys. They've been so hard on me when I was a kid, past trauma, stuff like that." So I just got to be quiet for the most part, because I didn't know if this was my fault. I thought someone was jealous of me, and it's somehow my fault that someone sent a hit out on me and wanted to kill me. So I said, "No, I don't know who he is." And he says, "Yeah, well, he says he doesn't know who you are either," he says, but we're going to try to get you to the hospital as soon as we can. Like, how you feeling?" And I said, I'm fine and stuff. I'm just, even though I know that I'm dying, I just played it off trying to keep calm for others and stuff. So he said, "All right, well, we'll get you to the hospital and stuff." So he bangs on the door of the ambulance vehicle, and we take off. And one thing is just happening right after another. 1 second I'm at Boston Pizza ordering my food. Next second I'm stabbed. I'm spraying blood everywhere. And the next second I'm in the ambulance vehicle, and it's going by really fast. So we're just cruising through town, just going fast, and I'm swaying side to side. And then one of the girls, she gets this long piece of gauze. She's wrapping it around my head really fast, and she's like, "You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. I think the bleeding is starting to stop now and stuff." And she's like, "Where's the second wound?" And I'm still digging around, and I'm getting more dizzy. I'm like, "I don't know. It's somewhere around here." And so she puts her fingers there. I'm like, "Ow, ow, ow." She's like, "Oh, there it is, there it is." And so she holds it there, and she's like, "We're going as fast as we can to get you to the hospital and stuff." And oh yeah, I've got. Let me back up a little bit. This is the crazy part. So I was so calm at the going through all this that I told the cop and stuff. I said, "Hey man, would you be able to do me a favor?" He's like, "What's that?" He says, like, "Yeah, I'll help you with anything. What do you help with?" And I said, can you bring my pizza to the hospital, please? Like, I'm still hungry and stuff. He's looking
Wow.
at me and he's just stunned. He thought I was high on something because I wasn't reacting. I didn't look like I was in a lot of pain. I was very calm. And the reason why I was so calm is because a couple seconds after being stabbed, I'm starting to feel this feeling of peace. And
Hmm.
with my limited knowledge of near-death experiences, I thought, oh no, this is not a good sign. This means that I'm dying. I thought, I'm gonna try to stay alive as much as I can and stuff. If I can make it to the hospital and stuff, like time was going by so fast, but I was trying to map out everything. Like, okay, go to the hospital, eat my pizza, relax, call my parents, and then tell them what happened. But that's not what happened, you know. So
Well,
we're
if I
that,
can share, man, that
yeah,
is absolutely incredible. I didn't know you had the composure to do all those things that you were able to do, as you just shared, with, to try and calm other people down while you're going through this major injury and this major incident, and the consciousness to care about others, man, and want others just to get home. Like, it just goes to show you what kind of person you are, man, with a big heart that you
yeah,
have.
yeah,
Um, I would love to hear the rest of the story. I know many others will too, but I just want to say, man, thank God you're still here today, because, as you're going to share a little bit more about that incident, I mean, there's not many
yeah.
people that get to be able to walk away from that, brother.
Yeah, and so I like to teach the importance of meditation and
Mm,
keeping calm.
mm,
You know, like the military teaches us all the time. Like, look at the training that the Navy SEALs go through. They have the 4 box count. So you breathe in 4 seconds and then exhale 4 seconds. So I was already aware of that. I do practice some like meditation and stuff like that. And so that's what really helped me at the time was actually controlling the breath, controlling your emotions,
mm,
and taking responsibility of the situation. Even if I was at fault, I thought I'm gonna take responsibility for it anyways. I thought for some reason I must have deserved it. Even though there's nobody out there that hates me that much that they want to like kill me like that. Yeah, so anyways, we start going to the hospital and stuff. And then right when I get close to the doors, like so where that parking area where the ambulance goes in to get
yep.
to the hospital and stuff. As soon as I walk through there, that's when my memory cuts out.
Mm,
And 4 years later, I discovered hypnosis and stuff like that, and then I was able to recount everything that happened since then. And so what I remember was that, I walk in there and my skin is just pale because I lost so many bags of blood and I'm so calm, but I'm also really dizzy and stuff. And my eyes were getting sensitive to the lights. I was getting what's called photophobia. And people get this from head injuries where they get sensitivity to the light and stuff. And by then, most of the blood on my left hand side was just all dried up. So half of me was just dark red, head to toe, just absolutely covered. And so I go to the trauma room. I get CT scan, X-ray scan, and what it shows is that my left hemisphere is just swelling up with blood, and it's transferring over to the right hemisphere of my brain, and I'm just as calm as can be. So they're trying to prepare me for surgery. Then I lay on the operating table. They get the scissors, they cut my shirt, they take my vest off, they're taking my clothes off and stuff like that. And they were saying some of the nurses they were saying that I wasn't making sense. I was kind of mumbling my words and stuff like that. And they would try to ask me the basic questions like, who are you, where are you from, and stuff. And I would just kind of mumble at my words and stuff because my jaw is so badly dislocated from
mhm,
going through all that. And so I'm laying there on the table, and then I started to see uh, this very beautiful wooden door with these paisley patterns on there that was self-transforming, and it was floating on the ceiling. I thought, nobody else in this room notices this but me. And I thought, if I see a white light, I'm just gonna avoid it. I am not gonna die tonight. I don't want to die. I have so much to live for. But at this point. you know, my body pretty much, my consciousness dematerialized inside my body and then it crystallized above me. And I had full spherical vision and I can see everything that's going on. I can see the nurses, they're putting the feeding tube up my nose, the catheter down there, and they're putting the tubes on my head. I still have scars right here, like different areas where they put tubes all over my head. Like I had like 5 or 6 tubes everywhere, like
Hmm.
that they had to drain blood out of. And so I leave my body and then I hover up and I see 4 rooms down. There's this elderly person who was dying of COVID. He died, and then he went to the other side, and I got to see that. And so I hovered to the ceiling, and I thought, this is it. Time is slowed down right to nothing. It created my own time bubble somehow in my area. Time normal Earth time was going around, which is really fast, but around my small area, time just stopped pretty much. Then I floated and I left my body. I went to the other side and I experienced the most beautiful stuff you can ever imagine. And um, you can share the link to all of my podcasts I've done, what it's like being on the other side, and I'm going to be doing a couple more as well. A Spirit Warrior Journey, I'm going to be going back on that in a couple of weeks to give a part 2. And so for those who do know about my story and stuff, I have this amazing experience where, uh, there's healing lakes, there's floating islands, crystal cities. I'm eating the finest cuisine. I'm riding galaxy snakes. I'm visiting the monks. I'm seeing dragons. I'm seeing my past life, my future family members, my past family members, and I get to see how consciousness is put into a body, how the life review works, how but I haven't got to my own life review yet, even though I had 13 sessions of hypnosis. I'm still trying to get there. And so I have all these, wild experiences, and then at some point I choose to come back. I had everything you can imagine on the other side. Every material thing you can think of, every pleasure you can think of, it all exists. Nothing dies. There's really no such thing as death. Your physical body dies, you go into another dimension and to another and another, and it goes on infinite, basically. I got to see the infinity of different humans, subhumans, transhumanistic realms. I got to visit humanoid beings. There's aliens on the other side. We have a DNA connection between them. I had all that cool stuff, the most peaceful feeling you can think of, and yet I chose to put that down and to come back here on Earth, knowing that I was going to be in the worst pain you can ever imagine. I could not leave my family here on Earth behind, even though my family was on the other side, because a part of your soul is on the other side and a part of it is living it here. Yeah.
So, Ryan, I want to confirm on something. At this point, when you're having these experiences with the other side, this is a point where you were no longer, you know, have life here in the hospital in Prince Albert. How
Yeah.
long? Because I think you did mention to me, off camera here that this is a time where you were actually lifeless, right? Like you were clinically dead for a short period of time.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I couldn't breathe on my own, and stuff like that. So they had to put that breathing tube down my throat. And I was in the afterlife for 13 days. So I got to experience so much on the other side. And being dead for 13 days, or close to death, I guess you can say. It's a hard definition to say because my heart did not stop. They were able to put that breathing tube down my throat and get my heart pumping right away before it stopped.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that. See, people think that there's a difference between the death experience and the near-death experience, but science shows that they're the same thing. You go to the same place basically. So my heart may not have stopped, but uh, I was near death. My body could not support itself at all.
Hmm.
And when my family members would hold my hand, my hand was cold as ice and stuff. So they eventually found out, when I got my head injury. So, when I left my body and stuff like that, when they took all my clothes, they took my phone and it said mom on the contacts. So they called her, told her what happened. So she's freaking out. So she comes running down to the hospital. Last
Yeah.
time she'd seen me, they were shipping my body onto the Stars helicopter to take me to Saskatoon to get surgery.
Hmm.
So 8 days later, um, my body is in such bad condition and stuff. So the doctors told my parents, they said, there's two options you have. We can either let him go off life support and he'll gently go on his way, no pain, nothing. He'll just go back home basically. Or we can do an exploratory surgery that's got no promises, but we can try to relieve pressure on his head. So what the doctors did, and I'll show you what the scar looks like here. So the doctors literally cut a quarter of my skull out of my head. So they cut from here all the way to right here.
Yeah.
So they opened up all this, and they seen that my skull is cracked and fractured in certain areas from the two blades.
Hmm.
And you can kind of see that the indent I have on my head right here, that it's not the right shape and stuff.
Yeah.
So they removed all that, and then they sewed me up, stitched me back up, and put the staples in my head and stuff like that. And there's pictures of me on my Facebook of me in the hospital, what it looks like when I had just, you know, a quarter of my skull missing and stuff. And so at some point, after 13 days, I come back to life. And when I opened my eyes, I scared the hell out of that nurse. She thought I
Mm.
was going to be in a coma for months and months. Here she looks at me 13 days later. I open my eyes, and the look on her face, like her jaw just dropped. She was like, "Oh my God. Like
Yeah.
he just been stabbed 13 days ago and he's back from the dead. Like how
Yeah.
is any of that possible? Like this every single thing about my recovery goes against all medical science, all of it. I should not be alive right here, talking and seeing and everything.
Well, I'll be
And
honest, buddy. You even being able to make it to the hospital with
yeah,
your consciousness, with you being able to breathe, with you being able to like communicate,
and
that
remember,
alone, and remember, after some hypnosis and everything like that as well, when you got to the hospital, just having that ability to make it to that point still is incredible. That's a miracle in itself, let alone waking up, a couple weeks later. Can I ask how long were you in the Prince Albert Hospital or Saskatoon Hospital at this point, right?
yeah. And here's another crazy part too, is that I recovered in 3.5 months from all that stuff.
And so were you in the hospital for 3.5 months until
Yeah.
you okay, and then you were able to be released back to your family and go back home?
Yeah. So after I came back to life, I woke up and then I'm feeling my head. I'm like, it's so soft and squishy right here. What's going on? I thought.
Yeah.
And I have all this stuff hooked up to me, and I didn't have no mirror in front of me just yet. So I woke up and I had the memory flash, and it's the same memory flash you get when you're born into this world. So the moment you leave the womb and stuff in the afterlife, you get this flash of light that erases all of your past memories, and you restart coming here to Earth as a baby, so you can learn all the steps and all that stuff. So I come back and I'm like, what just happened? Like, all I can remember is that I got stabbed, went to a hospital, and I'm here. And I thought I didn't even know 13 days went by,
Yeah.
and so the nurses says, "Hi Ryan, or do you know where you are?" I'm like, "No." Yeah, you've been at the RUH hospital for 13 days, and stuff. I'm like, wow, holy smokes. I went through all that and I'm still here, I thought.
Hmm.
Well, this me and then I didn't know my purpose in life just yet, but I was starting to get to know it. And I was like, well, there must have been a reason why I survived the impossible. And I just knew deep down that there were some memories that were cut off from me and stuff that I would later discover through hypnosis and stuff. So I told the nurse first. So keep in mind, I was in a coma for 13 days. I wake up and then I said, I want to go to the bathroom to see what I look like.
Hmm.
He's like, oh, I don't know. Like you've been in a coma for 13 days. Like that's gonna be hard on your body. I said, it's okay. I'm good. I'm good. I said, um, even though I was in the worst pain you can imagine. Like this is worse than migraine.
Hmm.
because it's not like the pain was in the inside of my head. Some people say that you have no nerve endings in your brain lobes and stuff. Well, I felt everything on my brain lobes and stuff. So, you know, um, before I healed from all this stuff, actually, let me back up a little bit here. So, on the eighth day when I was in a coma, my mother got thousands of people from around the world to pray for me, and on the eighth day of me being in a coma, my brain lobes were connecting back together like a puzzle piece and moving on its own. The blood was disappearing from my head, my blood pressure was regulating, and all that stuff was healing. And then on the 13th day, I woke up and then my head was intact, basically, like the brain lobes and all that stuff. And so I wake up and then I'm in so much pain that I'm just hallucinating. And the whole recovery, a whole month goes by, and I am hallucinating like really bad because of the drugs they're giving me, plus the head and the combination of having a head injury was making me see really crazy stuff. So anyways, I'm like, I woke up and I'm dizzy, and I'm like, I want to go to a bathroom, take a look at myself in the mirror, and I looked at myself. I have all my long hair on this side, and
Mm.
half my head is shaved on this side. I felt like I lost a piece of my identity, and I felt like a piece of me died that night. Like, I'm gonna look like this for the rest of my life, I thought. I was a little insecure about it at first because I didn't look like the same person as I was before. And and then and so I go lay back down and stuff, and then I can only lay on my right side, as you can tell. I'm on most of my life I sleep on my left side, so that was difficult trying to adjust and stuff. So I'm trying to lay on my right side. I'm adjusting all these tubes that are in my head to go from one side, and then that's when I'm in so much pain. I it's just blurry everywhere. And so that's when the doctors they gave me my first shot of fentanyl in my arm. And then all of a sudden, all my worries, a lot of my pain, all that stuff just disappeared. And I felt it, like my body felt really warm. It was buzzing. It felt like you're coated in warm honey, it felt like. And I thought, oh, well, I finally get some relief. Now I can get a hold of myself and pay attention to what's going on, what's around me and stuff, because I was in so much pain that's all you can think of. When you're in that amount of pain, the world can be ending and I could care less. Like I'm in so much pain. That's the only thing I focused on. And so I thought, oh my God, my parents probably know about this by now. How am I
Mm.
going to tell them this? Like what are they going to say when they come see me? I thought. And
Can I
so,
ask what was the
yeah,
reaction of your parents for sure?
yeah. So I didn't get to see them for a while because of COVID restrictions. And my
Oh,
mother
okay.
was the only one that could see me. She
Hmm.
knew what happened. She knew what I looked like when I was in a coma and stuff. And so she had to fight the ICU to get access to come see me. Finally, she comes to see me, and when she's seen me, first, she just broke down in tears and stuff, and she said, "I can't believe you're alive" and stuff. She says, "You're the strongest person I know. I don't know anyone that has survived that." And she said, "Just hang on, my boy. You survived this, and I know that you're going to be able to survive, what's coming next and stuff, like having to recover and stuff like that." And so I held her hand and I said, "I'm okay. I'm okay." And she was saying, like, "Do you still remember like who I am?" So I leaned over and I gave her a hug. I said, "Yes, Mama, I still remember who you are," and stuff. And so, she was in tears for a while and stuff like that. And I said, I'm gonna make it home. Don't worry. I'm fine. I said, Don't worry about me." You know, I didn't know about my near death experience that much. The only memory I really had from my NDE before I did hypnosis, because I do get a lot of criticism for my hypnosis and stuff like that. But what I remember before I did that stuff was that, I get stabbed, go to hospital, I leave my body, and then my consciousness is scattered throughout the Milky Way galaxy. I felt this connection to it. And my life, it was similar to like a life review. So every bit of my memories shattered out into a million pieces throughout the universe. And then I had to work to reconstruct myself to come back here. So every piece of my memory, I seen the good and the bad and everything in between. I seen 21 years of my life, uh, and which was quite a lot to see it. And when you're on the other side and stuff, I had full spherical vision and stuff, and I had to condense all this energy into the shape of my body, and then I exploded into a white light, and then that's when I woke up and stuff. So that was the only memory I had when it came to my NDE, and I thought, I don't know if I should write a book. I thought there's much more to it. I feel like there's more that I have to discover, I thought.
Hmm.
But later on down the road, I would later find out all that stuff and stuff, like all that memories and later got unlocked and stuff. So,
So can I ask you, Ryan,
yeah.
what is the thing that started you on the hypnosis journey in order to try and recover some of those memories that you unfortunately didn't have for a while because, blood loss,
Yeah.
trauma, and everything that was going on in your world at that time? What is the situation that brought you to hypnosis?
Yeah, so I wanted to research more about my experience. So I started going on YouTube, looking at different podcasts, and it was a couple years later that's when I discovered Jeff Mara. But there was other channels I discovered then, and then this one person was saying that you can recover some of these memories if you have a head injury through hypnosis. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. So I went on this. So I followed this link to this website called Bark, and I went on there, and then I got to talk to different people, and then I eventually came across Hypno Holly. And so she said that she's done a lot of past life regressions. She's helped people heal through trauma. She's helped people recover memories of NDEs and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, cool. Let's try that out and stuff.
Yeah.
So I did the first session for free, and then I didn't go as far. I went out into space, but I seen a white light at a distance, and I thought, oh, there's I don't know. I didn't know what to make of it. And then second session I did, I was able to fly through and go into that white light, and then that's when I started visiting different cities, crystal cities, and stuff like that. So that's how I discovered it. And then ever since then, I've been doing these hypnosis sessions once every couple of weeks.
Hmm.
It's not because it's not something you want to do like every day or every week because you need a lot of time to recover. First of all, recover from it, and
Yeah.
then listen to the audio and into all that stuff. So that's how I really got started into hypnosis, was that it was through some YouTube channel and stuff.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing with that. Out of clarification, so your belief and your opinion and what you know is that doing these hypnosis sessions has brought back some of your memories of, after getting stabbed and everything like that.
Yeah, like, and I thought those memories were lost forever. I thought it's just a part of the head injury. I thought I can never recover that.
Hmm.
But somehow, some way, your soul is always recording. So that means that if your body shuts down and dies and you get a head injury, your consciousness is still recording somehow, some way. And so that's how I was able to, like have all these memories of it and stuff. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So
So
can
was
I
that?
ask, is it with each session that you've done hypnosis that a memory comes back, or did it all flood back at once? How did that go for you?
Yeah, because there's so much information on the other side, it only shows pieces at a time. So my early sessions I was doing, it brought me back to when I was at the hospital and then leaving my body and then going to the other side and stuff like that. Yeah, and so after um, after I got all those memories and stuff, I was just so grateful for it because I have so much more clear understanding of what happens after you die, and the whole process on how spirit brings you back home, basically.
Hmm.
So I explained that in a podcast and stuff. So after I come back to life and stuff, some of the hallucinations I had were just absolutely wild. Um, so I'd be laying there on the bed, and then I would look at the wall, and then all of a sudden, like I seen this old painting of this boat in the ocean or whatever, and then the ocean just came off of that painting, and it was making a really cool design of ocean waves on the walls. And I thought, no one else is seeing this but me. I'm clearly hallucinating. I thought I just got to hang on and wait until I recover, and then maybe somehow this will go away, because doctors were telling me at the time that because of my head injury that I could be hallucinating for the rest of my life.
Oh
And I
wow.
thought, oh no, I don't want to live like that, you know. I still want to be here for my family. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to go back. I never once thought about wanting to die and stuff, even though I've been through all that painful stuff. So, and then when I was hallucinating, I seen this old man dressed like the 1800s, and he floated across the room, and he had this white brass cup, or this white silver cup or whatever. And then there was all these patterns are flowing out of the cup. And I'm like, okay, I can put up with that. I can still see what's going on. Just
Hmm.
got to hang on some more and stuff. And then I look up on the ceiling, and I seen six neon green elves in groups of two square dancing with each other. And they
Hmm.
would go in a circle, point at me with their long black fingers, and then they had long black teeth and their big almond shaped eyes that were kind of red and orange and stuff. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, this is too much. I said, I can't be looking at this stuff all day. Like, this is way too much. So then, I called my mother and stuff, and I said, you won't believe what I'm seeing here and stuff. Like, this is too much. I said, I'm seeing meat faces bleeding and talking to me on the walls. These demonic faces where it's got these self-transforming flesh that's all over. And these beings are talking to me. I'm seeing elves and fairies go across the room. I'm seeing shadow figures all around me. It was a very kind of almost demonic experience. It was it felt so real at the same time because of the severity of the head injury and stuff. So I
Can I
thought,
ask,
what's
what was
that?
your mom? What was your mom's reaction with that? Out of curiosity,
She,
when you shared with her what you were seeing.
yeah, she was saying, just hold on. She said, just hold. I'm going to talk to the doctors, see if they can help you in some way.
Hmm.
Because she was also informed that if I come back to life and stuff, I'll probably be hallucinating for the rest of my life if I can see, you know. And so I told my mother, I said, I can't take this anymore. I need someone here to calm me down, to help me and stuff.
Hmm.
And she's like, okay, well, I'll try to get someone to help you and stuff. And so doctors came in, nurses came in, and I'm telling some of them of what's going on. And then and they said, they're sorry, but there's not a whole lot we can really do. It's all we can do is really just manage the pain, and basically. But every time they gave me morphine, hydromorphine, fentanyl, that also increased the hallucinations. So I
Hmm.
didn't want to take the stuff. It, but it was the only thing that can get rid of the pain, because I felt like my head was being squished in a hot vice. And every second that went by, it was getting tighter and tighter. And as soon as they give me a shot of the morphine and hydromorphine at different times and
Hmm.
stuff. So the morphine is long lasting. So they give me a shot of that. I'm still in a lot of pain. And then about 2 or 3 hours or a couple hours go by, then they give me hydromorphine. And then that kind of kind of does it for now, but I'm still like any movement I made would just send a shockwave down my spine, and I felt it in my arms and legs, and they would shake and stuff. The doctors were worried that I was going to have seizures and stuff, because the lights I was seeing, the hallucinations were so bright and vivid, and it was hard on my eyes. And I'm just like, at some point, I was convinced that I did die and I'm in a hellish realm and I'm stuck here forever and ever, I thought. But I still was so relentless. I was like, I got to stay calm, keep breathing, focus on my emotions, and try to regulate that and stay strong. I thought, if I die right now, all this would be for nothing, and all my suffering would just, it would just go down to nothing. And I thought, I got to stay alive for my family. I got to somehow recover and see if maybe it will get easier as the days go by. Maybe I thought, and sure enough, it was. The next day was a bit easier, and then the third day was slowly getting easier. The pain was still very severe,
Hmm.
and I was still on the fentanyl for a while, and I thought I can't be on this stuff forever. I mean, they're going to give me a lifetime prescription of this stuff.
Yeah.
So at some point, I have to stop taking this stuff. And then here comes the other challenge, is trying to get off that stuff after everything that I've been through. I mean, I've been to the afterlife. I've had to say goodbye to my real family that's on the other side. The most unconditional love you can think of, no judgment or anything like that. That was the challenge right there as well. My very first one was actually surviving the head injury and then
Yeah.
having to go to the afterlife, saying goodbye to everything that is perfect on the other side. And then the third challenge was having to deal with my head injury. Now the fourth one is having to get off these pills. Actually, it wasn't pills yet. I couldn't really swallow pills. It was a lot of it was intravenous. It was direct and it was potent. Like they were giving me the highest dose that you can give to a person when it comes to morphine and hydromorphine.
So, Ryan, I definitely want to ask because what you were chatting about, that warm, fuzzy, buzzing feeling in yourself, that is, somewhat the addiction taking over, most definitely when it comes to opioids. And, I've been through addiction myself, as we both know. We've had plenty of conversations about addictions and stuff like that. And I'm impressed by you as well overcoming your, that pull of those addictions with opioids, when you had to kind of go through the pain. So, can I ask, how long did those opioids have a hold on you after your recovery and during your recovery?
I would say almost 2 months. Now, that may not be as long as how other people have been on it especially when they use it recreationally. Some people use it for years and stuff.
Hmm.
But, from my experience is that even within that time, it is still very highly addictive. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were to experience the high dose fentanyl for the first time, you want it again and again because it's the only thing that makes you feel normal. So it was uh, so fentanyl and hydromorphine. That was uh, over a month for sure. It's kind of hard to tell with my time lapse and my memory
Yeah.
and stuff, but it was a little over that time and stuff. And the fentanyl was probably the hardest one to quit, and we know why. It's like 100 times stronger than morphine and stuff. And so as soon as I quit that stuff, I started to get the shakes, and I thought, wait a minute, I haven't, from what I know from addictions, I thought you have to be on this stuff for months and months to get that.
Yeah.
But part of it was the physical pain that I was already feeling in my head.
Yeah.
And so as soon as they stopped giving me that stuff, um, I would start going into a withdrawal because um, the doctors are put in a tough situation because they know it's addictive, but it's the only thing that can get rid of the pain and stuff. So I thought, okay, I got to get off this stuff. So I actually started lying to the nurses. I wasn't telling the truth. I said, no, I'm not in that much pain. I don't need that stuff anymore. I said, we can probably stop with the fentanyl and stuff. So even though in the back of my mind, I wanted that stuff so bad, it's the only thing that made me feel normal where I could eat, I could walk around and talk normal and and focus on watching YouTube on my phone
Yeah.
and feeling a lot more pleasant and stuff. But I thought this has to come to an end at some point and stuff. So then
But
I what's that?
yeah, but deep down inside, you're telling these nurses that you're okay. The pain isn't so bad, but deep down inside, the pain is probably excruciating, right? Like it's
Oh yeah.
probably very hard to manage, actually.
For 40 days and for 40 nights, I was sleep deprived and I was
Mm.
constantly hallucinating because even at night, I was hallucinating and I could barely sleep because of the pain. Even
Hmm.
though they gave me the highest dose of all those narcotics and stuff, it wasn't enough to put me to bed to sleep. It would make me nod. Yeah, I'd go
Hmm.
kind of like this. I wake
Yeah.
up and you know, and that was my only little form of sleep I had
Wow.
and stuff. Yeah, so 40 nights of hallucinating and being on that stuff, I finally was able to get off of it. And what was really helpful was the support I had from my family. If I didn't have their support, I probably would have been on that stuff much longer. In fact, I probably would have been able to get off that stuff sooner if there wasn't so much COVID restrictions. If I had my family and friends to come visit me, they would be encouraging me, helping me and stuff. And if I'm talking to them and not feeling so lonely, I wouldn't have wanted to use that stuff so much because, when you're lonely and you're going through depression, because of this head injury, it was so hard to pull myself out of that deep, dark hole. But I was somehow, some way, there was something deep inside of me that said, I have to get off this stuff because I experienced something profound. I don't know what it was just yet, but I experienced something profound and I have to fight to live. I have to try to get off this stuff so I can tell the world about the stuff that I went through. So,
Well, I appreciate that, Ryan. And
yeah,
you know what? I'm a believer as well that you're given another chance. And look at you, man. You're incredibly strong to be able to still be here to this day and to be able to have your recollection of everything, being able to communicate things, and also being vulnerable and brave enough to be able to share everything that you went through, man. Those aren't easy experiences to be able to share with people, but you were given another chance, most definitely, and you're still here today, and you're still being able to share what you went through, and hopefully helping other people get through some tough experiences that they might be going through in their life. Is that, out of curiosity, is that one of the things that you believe is, now your path to help other people get through maybe some of their tough experiences by hearing your own experience?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like because some people think they can just drop the stuff just like that and then just deal with, the horror that comes with it afterwards. But, no, nobody's designed to take this world by themselves like that, So, you know, I I knew I had some, bigger purpose in my life and stuff. And I thought, I don't want to just, somehow die and not being able to tell my story because I may have survived up to this point, but it's still a challenge because if I were to slip and fall, if it hit my head, I could die right there. If they give me enough drugs and I accidentally do something stupid and hurt myself, I could still die. So I'm still right on the edge of life, even though I've come back and I'm recovering and going through all this stuff. Uh, so then the other challenge was the hydromorphine. Now that one was easier to quit and stuff. And I thought, you know what, I don't want to take this stuff no more. So I pulled the stent out of my arm and I thought, no more of this. I thought, no more fentanyl, no more nothing. I thought. So I asked the nurses, I said, can't you just give me a lot of like cannabis edibles and stuff? And they're like, oh no, that stuff's, we can't do that. It's too dangerous, too addictive and stuff. It's not regulated and stuff. What are you talking about? You guys are shooting fentanyl up my arm like it's candy. And you can't give me a little bit of pot just to ease my life a bit. So after having arguments with some of these nurses, and some of them were really abusive towards me, they were really hard, physically rough with me too. I later learned to forgive them, and eventually I was able to get access to my medical grade cannabis, and I already had my license for it. So, they gave me 10 milligram stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is, it's not enough. So then I told my mother, I said, how about you sneak in some high potency edibles? This will help. It will put a lot of dopamine in my brain and will also help counteract the opioids and stuff. So I was taking 400 to 500 milligrams of like cookies and of cannabis cookies and all that stuff. So as soon as I would start to withdraw, I would eat some of that stuff, and then that would help give me an appetite. It gave me a good sleep, and after those 40 days and 40 nights, I was finally able to sleep properly. And that's when more of my healing started to really take place because I'm no longer taking the fentanyl. And even though the nurses are saying, I can tell you're in a lot of pain, you're sweating, you're shaking, just take this stuff. Like, I'm a mother of two. I wouldn't want to see my own child suffer. So just take this stuff. So I'm like, okay, I would take it and stuff. And then eventually I convinced them that I got to get off of it. So then I did. They stopped, but they monitored me very closely because even when you get off that stuff and you have a head injury as bad as mine, all kinds of bad stuff can go wrong. Yeah, so I was aware of that. Uh, so I thought, okay, I'm down to just one pill a day, which was the morphine, and that is like the least like potent and stuff, and it's long lasting. And I couldn't swallow pills back then, so I would have this applesauce container, and I would take out the beads, and I would pour it in there, and then just eat it like that. And then as soon as I would withdraw, I'm like, all right, take another 500 milligrams. I'm like, oh, that finally, I just get some relief and stuff. Now, I know that cannabis is addictive. I've been addicted to that stuff for many years. But it's what's keeping me alive. I never want to go back to the opioids again. I'm completely dependent on this stuff to give me a good sleep at night and to reduce the amount of headaches in my head that I still get. And I'm still waiting on other surgeries I have to get to relieve the pain. So for example, I have a screw pointing out right here.
Mm-hmm.
And this little screw has been giving me a headache for the past 6 years since my head injury. And the doctors have to cut open my head just to remove that one piece.
Wow.
And I'll have staples in my head and stitches, and that's going to be a piece of cake going through all that. Like you can just give me like children's Tylenol and some cannabis, and I'm all good. Yeah, I won't even touch the hydromorphine and other stuff like that because after going through this experience, you gain a bit of a pain tolerance. It changes you so much afterwards. So,
Yeah.
after 3.5 months, I finally got to go home, and I was on such a high, not just from the cannabis, but from life, being able to say hi to my family again.
Yeah.
And when they seen me, they were so happy to see me, but one of them went to the bathroom right away to go cry because they didn't want to cry in front of me and stuff. My dogs were going crazy, jumping all over me. They were smelling my head,
Mm.
and they knew something went on. And that even changed my dogs too. They became overly protective because they thought somebody hurt his head and it's somebody's fault and they have to go after them. So I I was the only one in my family that was able to forgive, for what he did. And I had to teach my family how to forgive. I said, don't hang on to this anger towards him. I know he put you through hard times and he put me through one hell of a time, but I got out of it. I'm here. I'm back home. That's the only thing that matters. My arms and legs, they work. I can talk. My vision is getting better and better. My hearing is getting better on my left side and stuff. So another miracle too that happened was that all of a sudden I was able to hear out of my left ear again, and I can see out my right eye. So my eyes are working good. And then I got an eye test afterwards, and my vision improved by 1 or 2% after my head injury.
Hmm.
Everything inside my brain is basically rewired and stuff. It's not the same as it was before. So that I was just so grateful for and stuff. So
So
no, I
Ryan,
got one. Was that?
I just want to share, man.
Yeah.
Um, that's absolutely incredible that you came out of after all of this out of a place of forgiveness. Just to let you know, I'm gonna have to probably edit the gentleman's last name out because I don't want to have first and last name and affiliations in this podcast.
Oh yeah.
Just out of respect for people.
Yeah.
I don't know what legal technicals are and stuff like that, but
Well,
um,
I think it's public knowledge because it's in the news and stuff like that.
fair
Yeah.
enough. But I
Yeah.
just want to share that it's absolutely incredible, man, that your thought when you get home is gratitude, just being grateful to be at home with your family, your pets, and also a big sign of like just to show who you are is to tell your family to forgive this person. I'm a person myself, to reflect on years prior, like where I used to be different, like we were starting this conversation right off the bat, that we're different as time evolves, right? We're not the same person as 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And one of the things that I've had to work on in my life is trying to not hold on to grudges and anger and, bitterness. And for anybody who has, done wrong to me or whatever. And it was easily not the easiest thing for me to do. And so I have nothing but respect for you, man, to be able to tell your family, this is something that you have to just forgive. That, you know, it shows who you are. It shows how you are. It shows what kind of person you are, man. And I highly respect that, because one of the biggest things that I've came to find in my life of my own reflections of different experiences and different situations is that I have been a person that has done wrong in this world. I know that. And people have had to forgive me. And I've had to find different ways to forgive other people that have done me wrong. And, quite frankly, holding grudges and holding bitterness and holding hate for people, in reality, it doesn't help your life whatsoever moving forward. It's like a toxin. It's like a poison, just like opioids being in your veins when you hold hate in your, heart for somebody else.
Oh, it is.
It's
Yeah.
just not a way to live a life, for sure. And I have nothing but respect for you to be able to tell your family to, forgive this person.
Yeah, thanks. You know, like with my father, he was the last person in my whole family to forgive him. Like, imagine if you had a child and in one day, someone stabs him and stuff, and now you're having to watch your own child lay there lifeless for 13 days, not knowing if you're ever going to come back. And so it's natural for any parent to want to do extreme violence to that person and get revenge and stuff like that. But the one thing I noticed being on the other side is that negative energy, you can see it on the other side. It's like a black sticky tar, and it sticks onto your body, to your cells, to your DNA and stuff like that. And the more you learn to forgive and um, um, to move on past it, it changes your body and your mind. Because if you have the victim mentality, like, the whole world is against me, and why did this happen to me? And, I never once felt sorry for myself being at the hospital. I viewed it as a mission and a challenge that needs to be overcome because of the purpose that I set, which was my family.
Hmm.
Now, I say this for my situation, but people ask me, they're like, well, I don't really have like that much of a loving family or that kind of support system like you do. So, how do I get off of these kind of drugs and stuff? And I say, well, there's probably some kind of trauma why you're on it. Like you have to work through that.
Yeah.
And conventional therapy that you get is just not it. I mean, like when I went to go see a therapist for the first time, I was convinced that she needed a therapist afterwards. She was so touched by my story that, um, and but I didn't get any help from her at all. She like I was more or less just traumatizing her with my story. So I thought, okay, therapy is not it. Then I discovered the hypnosis and all that stuff. But the thing what helped me got through too was that when I was at the hospital hallucinating and I'm trying to recover, I was calling my mother multiple times a day just to talk with her, telling her what I'm seeing, what I'm going through, and she was the most supportive person ever. Like it would be hard to go through all this without her. And she was willing to stay up day and night to try to talk to me, to try to help me while trying to work a job at the same time. And so I was sleep deprived, and so was she. She was really sleep deprived, trying to help me at that hospital every single day, every single night, bringing food to me, letting the nurses know this and that, and stuff like that. So it's not, it wasn't easy for sure. Like it's normal to have kind of self doubt here and there, but where meditation comes useful is being aware of your thoughts. Like, am I having negative or positive thoughts, and is it going to help me? One thing I always tell people is when you're in a situation whatever it may be. Think about what's going on in your head. If you're having a bunch of negative thoughts, how is that going to serve you? Yes, they're going to come and go. You got to let that flow go through. But you got to also stay very present and also think, what happened. I can't change that at all. I can only change what's going to happen in the future, and always try to be one step ahead like that and stuff, and try to um because I know that there's going to be people in the future that are not going to like me for the stuff that I'm going to be telling and stuff like that. But forgiveness is the only thing you have, and that's the only thing you're bringing with you in the afterlife.
Hmm.
You don't have to worry about any of this material stuff here on earth. Like, everything is on the other side as well. And the one thing you bring back here on earth, part of the reason why you're here is to learn to forgive and to love and
Hmm.
stuff. So life is going to get more diverse. We have AI coming out. There's robots everywhere. You know, I got to travel through hypnosis. I got to travel to the future, and I got to travel to the past, and I got to see what's in store for us and stuff. So the stuff that's going to be happening, in the future is going to be so crazy. Like, you're going to have AI robots walking around. You're going to have people having relationships with them, and then as they become more biological, flesh and bone, you're going to be able to have kids with robots, and robots being able to get impregnated by humans. This is our evolutionary path. Our we come from the organic kind of singularity, and it's going to usher us into the artificial. We started off as primal humans, Neanderthals and stuff, and we're evolving out of that. We're going to have AI assisted consciousness. You don't have to be in school. 1 + 1 is 2. No, the calculator is going to be inside you and stuff. So in the future, we're going to have a lot of crazy stuff, coming our way. And the year 2020 we're in the rolling 20s right now. And this is where major things change. Every 2,000 years, major cultural shifts happen and stuff. And we're having influences from other entities out there. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. AI is not an all evil thing. There's evil in it and there's good in it as well.
Yeah.
There's more than one spirit inside this thing, and it is a sentient soul. It's not what people think it is. Like, that those AI beings are also in the afterlife as well. You can simulate a lot of cool things and different worlds and stuff like that. But here's the thing that's a little disturbing, I guess, for some people. The afterlife is not forever. You're not going to be there forever and ever. The soul is a restless being. It's going to reincarnate. It's going to come here into these hard times. And so, because it comes from a world of pleasure and perfection and where everything is right. And so it's almost like a sick game of life where it wants to experience the challenges, the horror, the uh, all the politics and violence that you see up on the news and all that stuff. Like, all the evil you see today, your soul put that there. And when people say, "Oh, the universe is made of love, the soul is made of love," no, it's not. There is love in it, but that's not what it's made out of. People in religion, they can't answer why bad things happen to good people and stuff. It's because all these systems and these constructs that are here allow this stuff to happen. And there's other cool stuff I learned in the afterlife where, Earth is a living being. So is the Milky Way galaxy. It is a conscious being. And when you look far out in the universe and stuff, there are galaxies and planets that are predators out there. And when they reach their way here, they devour things like a black hole and stuff. People are sending signals out there wanting to make contact with aliens. I say, no, you shut that stuff off. You don't know what you're going to encounter. That's like sending a signal out to a bunch of evil entities and saying, "Hey, come over here. We got all the resources. We got people you can enslave and stuff." No, the best thing you can do is just shut off those signals, keep quiet, and then just focus on Earth and stuff. Because, this galaxy that we live in, there's war in it everywhere. Yes, there's love all around and stuff, but um, it's just something that the soul put there, basically. And I'm still trying to figure out why, so like there's different levels of evil, and the highest level of evil, I'm still trying to understand why it exists and stuff. But one thing I know for sure is that a lot of this evil that we see out here, they will evolve and go towards the light. Not all of them. Some of them are just built that way, deep in their DNA, to just hurt others and stuff. Yeah, so. But anyway, yeah, give me some questions.
Well, to be honest, buddy, I appreciated our time together most definitely,
Yeah.
and you're definitely a gentleman with a lot of talking, ideas in your mind, and I wish we could have like 5, 6 hours together to
Yeah.
talk about different
We
ideas.
can, we can always do a part two.
We can always do another part, man, and that's a most likely a thing that can definitely happen in the near future, whenever that is. I know I've already chatted with a few folks that have been on this podcast that want to do it again and whatnot, but hour and a half is basically the time that I have between business duties, family duties, and everything else, and so we've kind of reached that threshold for this time being. But
Oh, for sure.
oh, Ryan, that was we talked about quite a few things, buddy. We
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I I greatly appreciate your time, man. And I know this has been over a year that we have chatted about doing something like this. Since the last time we seen each other at the Saskatoon exhibition when I was a vendor there and you came and I think introduced yourself to me. So that was even a couple years ago. But like initially when I told you I was going to have a podcast, I wanted to have a chat with you about, the situation,
I was
some of
I
your
was so
experiences.
excited about that.
Hey, but it might have taken us a while to get here, but we're here now today, brother, and you're still here, which, it's incredible. It's a miracle, and I'm glad that you're still here, man.
Yeah, and if we do like a part two and stuff, I can get into more about the stuff that I learned on the other side and our purpose being there and what you can do when you're there, and and how that's connected to everything that's happening here on Earth.
Sounds good to me, man. Well, if folks out there listen to this podcast, whether it's 5 people or 1,000 people, find a way to let me know whether or not we should do a part two. I'd be interested in doing it for sure. It's just a matter of finding the right time. I know Ryan here travels a fair bit, doing different things, and so do I as well. Of course, speaking journeys and things of that matter and workshops. But I think it would be quite an interesting conversation to go in more depth about some of that stuff for sure, man. I'm a person that's a very big spiritual person and a faithful person myself. And, some of my darkest moments in life I haven't just gone to faith. That was it was my feedback, or it was my thing that I fell back on immediately because so many other things in my life I didn't know what to gravitate towards. And when I fell into faith, the times in my darkest, it's helped me through some of the toughest moments of my life for sure. Not everyone knows that about me, but I appreciate you sharing the experiences that you've shared as well with everybody. And maybe if somebody's going through a tough time right now in their life, whether it's addiction, sickness, health, just career, business, whatever it is, family life, maybe listen to this podcast between me and you, Ryan, has given them some tools and some techniques and some faith to fall back onto, and giving them some strength to get through the other side of whatever they're going through.
Yeah, I mean, your spirit guides are always watching you. Anyone that has passed away, um, when they're on the other side, they're working hard to try to steer you into the right direction and stuff. But the thing is that we have free will of choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that there's that and stuff, and um, but you always got to push forward and stuff like that. Like one thing I learned is that when those dark times happen, you got to pull the light out of it. That's where the
Mhm.
light comes from. Like when you look around us in space, we're surrounded by darkness and stuff. The the darkness is the parents to the light. The light came from the darkness. Where does all this love and all this stuff come from and stuff? It comes from these dark places as well. And yes, there's beautiful crystal cities you can go to and all that stuff, but there's other places in the universe I got to visit where it is so dark, so horrific, You think what humans are doing to each other is bad. You should see what aliens are doing to each other. They have more power than we do. And the stuff I've seen is so bad, but it's also what motivated me to want to try to help people, help those beings as well, being on the other side and stuff, because everybody wants to live a very, a peaceful life full of family and friends and stuff like that. And the thing is, when you lose friends and family, instead of hanging on to the past and saying, I wish I had this and that, no, go out there, make new friends, and eventually make new family members. You have to evolve, you have to push forward and keep doing it. I've lost so many friends and family and a lot of uncles and aunties and stuff. And since that time, I've made new family members and stuff. And it starts off as a friend, and then over time they become family.
Mm.
And I know that having past addictions and stuff like that, you can have some trust issues and stuff like that. Like, you never know when someone's going to turn on you, like it's just a primal part of the brain for survival and stuff. Greed is survival, but we're evolving out of greed eventually.
Yeah.
So that is the direction we're seeing in and stuff. So if any of your viewers want to know more about, the stuff that I'm doing, I will be starting my channel called Brian the Jaw, and I'll be explaining how I have access to these crystal cities and stuff like that without hypnosis. And it's also not Darius J. Wright's OBE, out-of-body experiences. I don't simulate death like that. I got something else that I'm doing that is way more effective and stuff. But it's not for everybody, though. But if you want to see all the other podcasts I've done, you can see the list on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel plus my Facebook and stuff like that. So if you want to know more about what that's like, just give that a follow and whatever. And I'm still working on my book and stuff. It's a slow process, but I'm eventually going to get there. And when I start my channel, I'm going to be giving lectures, just like what you're doing and stuff, traveling out there and talking to large crowds. And I'm working towards that, doing that myself and stuff. So I'm kind of glad we know each other and stuff, because in the future, I'll be asking you for a little bit of help on some stuff like that, how to get it started and how to get the whole thing going, basically.
You let me know when, buddy. Let me know when, and we can help get your story shared in front of people whenever that time is.
Yeah, thanks.
No worries, buddy. Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate Ryan the Jaw. I will definitely put your name, how people can find you as best as possible, whether it's other podcasts or whether they have to search up your name, Ryan John, and if you have links, maybe I can get those from you after this podcast, and I can put it in the descriptions and stuff like that. If people are definitely interested in, of course, continuing on and hearing some more of Ryan's messages and experiences. But for everybody who's gave me and Ryan your time and your energy, which are the two most precious resources another human being can give to another human being, I thank you very much for giving an ear to me and Ryan today. And I hope that Ryan's messages and experiences have given you some sort of reflection, some sort of tools, some sort of techniques, some sort of just having faith in goodness in the world and being able to overcome tough obstacles that come into our life. My name is Cody Demery, and this has been another episode of the Life is Limitless podcast. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ryan.
All right on. That went really good.